All right. Greetings, greetings. Peace, everyone. Chief Yuya here. And we are, I guess we say live, Clubhouse. So I know some of you were expecting to hear Akoti Deidre was going to bring forth, but the last minute substitution, if you don't mind. So I wanted to get right into just just something that I think we can all add into, and it's somewhat related to the things that we've been speaking about in terms of just freedom. One of the things that I was kind of focusing on previously was really allowing yourself to be free in expression and free in what it is that you may be thinking, being able to really discern what your thoughts are, from emotion and, allowing yourself the opportunity in this space to share those sort of things. But I wanted to get into, one of the reasons why sometimes we don't share those things, this idea of Big Brother. And some of you may be familiar with Big Brother. There was a reality show some years ago. I'm going to say some years ago. It may still be out. I don't know. Not much of a TV watcher. But, well, basically, there was a show where people were monitored and watched, right? In their everyday lives. And I know it probably seems like no big deal now. So the show's probably not even out anymore because people tend to do that themselves now anyway, you know, just by way of, okay, cool. Yeah, the chat is up. Peace. Just by way of the information that they divulge through their social media and things like that, right? People tend to just kind of tell on themselves, if you will. But there was a time where this idea of privacy was extremely important and definitely thoroughly safeguarded. And some people still do, obviously. But going forward, there's a concept of Big Brother that we get from the book 1984 by George Orwell. And some of you may remember, for those of you who follow like the other platforms, I did a breakdown on 1984 some time ago and kind of shared maybe different perspectives that may have helped some people to understand, what Orwell was speaking about, in terms of this idea of the invasion of being under a totalitarian sort of government and the invasion of privacy, the invasion of thought, and the concept of double thinking or being double minded and using double speech as well, and it's something that people commonly do, especially in the work that I do as a counselor and a guide. I'm constantly dealing with people who are using double speak and thinking that I'm not that I don't that I'm not picking up on it. you know, um, Sometimes people don't realize, especially when they're completely focused on getting their story off, getting their narrative off. They don't realize that human brains are very similar, and we all pretty much lie the same. We all defend our ego the same. And there's certain phrases that are very common that come up. There's certain kind of behavior. There's certain sort of even body postures. There's certain cadence where people will start to stutter or people will begin to stall, or there's certain kind of deflections that people use when they're lying. They try not to answer things directly, and they'll start to use very complicated sort of language, and then sometimes they'll play dumb at the end. I don't understand the question. I don't know what you mean. But they were smart enough to come up with this elaborate labyrinth of deflection, but now they're not smart enough to, answer a very simple question. And sometimes people don't realize, how obvious that stuff is because of, again, the similarities in the human mind. So 1984 kind of dealt with the concept of doublespeak, saying one thing, but it actually means another, and really gathering power through taking truth and taking knowledge. Let me move my phone over here if I knock it over. Taking truth and knowledge, gathering it together, and distorting it in a way where it starts to kind of play with the mind, which is what most people who are entrenched in mind control do, right? So I wanted to start off the discussion, and I'm keep it simple, with a very simple concept. And this is kind of birthed from something that someone says to me all the time, and I never say anything when they say it, but it's just always like something that I guess tickles me a little bit. But they have a digital assistant. Now, digital assistant would be like your Siri or your Alexa or your Google Assistant. IBM even has Watson, but these are digital assistants, right? And then, of course, like even with the Alexa and Google, you have a physical device that is solely dedicated to providing you music or news or whatever thing that you care to ask of it. And this person, whenever they're referring to their device, they always refer to them in a anthropomorphized sense. You know, he's not answering, or she's not answering, or she's taking too long, or he's taking too long, or he didn't like that question, or she didn't like that question. And there's it's funny to me, kind of knowing the technology a little bit, but there's an important aspect to that. I end up knocking this phone over. This phone is going to knock over before we're done. But but there's an important aspect to that whole concept, in that for you to understand the technological aspect of it, you have to understand this, and that's there's not enough processing power in those devices to fulfill all the tasks that you're actually asking it, right? So the device that you have has to in, uh, extrapolate your language. It has to understand your speech from all of your background noise, from music that's playing, other people speaking, your TV may be playing, so forth and so on. So when you say, Alexa, tell me what time it is, right? I just did that to mess with everybody's Alexa. Uh, I'm just being mischievous. But the point is, when you say those like that, or you say, Google, hey Google, what's the weather going to be tomorrow? Or hey Google, turn on all the lights. Let me stop. But when you do things like that, you may be imagining that there's some sort of processing that's happening inside of the device, but it's not happening in the device. That's why your device has to be connected to the broader band of the internet in order to process your commands. So what is the device exactly? The device is nothing but a microphone. That's it. It's a microphone. Now, I know your device may play music, or it may speak back to you. That only means that it's a microphone and a speaker. That's it. Those devices do not even have the computing and processing power that your phone has, or for some of you, even your watch has. Okay, it's only a microphone and it's only a speaker. So, what does that mean? Now, I know some of you are like, "Oh, yeah, that's kind of true," but sometimes we don't look at it like that, because the way they humanize these devices, we don't realize that it's just a microphone sitting in my living room, and it's on all the time, and it's connected to something or someone outside of my home. That's all it is. And someone or something outside of my home knows my daily routines, knows what news channels I like, and is answering any question that I may desire. Also knows the layout of my house based on the smart devices that I may have installed or the doorbell that I may have. It's only a microphone and it's only a speaker, right? So this is the realization of the Big Brother concept or the Big Brother um, reality that we see in 1984. We're already experiencing it, and then you have something going further that was recently brought about, Amazon Mesh, right? And we can get into the mesh networks, but essentially just everyone being connected, like so you being on your neighbor's there's that phone. So you being on your next door neighbor or somebody walking by in front of your house, being able to plug into your actual technology in your home, right? So it's like this humongous hive of interconnectedness. And what's also linking all of these things together is your microphone that you have in your house, right? So similar to like movies like The Truman Show, where there was an individual who was being watched and recorded all the time. It's already happened. Now, of course, one could say, "Well, we have that already in the phones." Yeah, you do have it in the phones. You do. Yeah. Years ago there was these Nextel phones that were out. We used to call them chirps in New York, and they basically had two-way radios in them, and you could speak to someone back and forth on a two-way radio without using up your data. And a lot of people used them for different reasons. Let's say that. And we came to understand, at least in New York, the police were using their scanners to pick up on the communication that was happening between Nextel devices. So if I had a Nextel device and my friend had a Nextel device, and we were speaking on that device on a particular channel, like we were basically on two-way radios or walkie-talkies, as some may call them, um, then the police would have the opportunity and the ability to listen in on our conversations, and they were actually doing that, right? So the concept of being listened to is, and I'm going back to like this was like 1996, something like that, 95, 96, maybe a little late, maybe 97, but yeah, like 95, 96, right? So long, 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 long time ago in ancient times, in 1996, these things were happening where people were being listened into. Back then we still had a lot of analog copper wire phones. If you wanted to listen in on someone's call, you'd have to tap into the actual physical copper wire and put a connection onto that. But we were just giving up, or people were just giving up the information using these Nextel chirps. I never owned a Nextel chirp because I always knew it was suspect. I said that's a when I first saw it, I said that's a walkie-talkie. I said, no, I'm not talking on that. I barely talk on the phone, and I'm definitely not talking on that. I was even late to the cell phone game, to be honest with you. I didn't have a cell phone until well into the 2000s. Well into the 2000s. I no, I did. I'm sorry. I had a StarTAC. I did have one, and then I let it go, and then later I got one, but then I didn't put any service on it, and I would only use it when I was near a Wi-Fi hotspot. So a straight up service cell phone and all that, I've only really had that, for probably about 5 years. You know, maybe a little more, but yeah, about maybe a little more than 5 years. That's about it. You know, but the point I'm making is, speaking about this concept of Big Brother, and to understand that, like in the movie 1984, there was this campaign, we'll say, to utilize knowledge and truth and to manipulate it in order to gain power or to maintain power. And from a metaphysical perspective, um, we understand that there is there's this figure who was presented to us called Big Brother, right? And Big Brother, um, we saw images of, but we never saw an organic image. So we never really got any confirmation that Big Brother was a real person, right? Um, and later on in the book, Winston Smith, our protagonist, he reads a book and he finds out, or the book tells him that Big Brother doesn't even exist, right? But Big Brother is kind of like an icon, if you will, of Ingsoc and Oceania, and Big Brother kind of represents what we would call the leadership, right? And what's kind of important about that, or interesting about that, is that um, Big Brother is represented by several living figures or living characters, but there's no clear proof that there actually is a living figure, called Big Brother. Now, of course, if they would have used a name like All Father or Big Father, it would have had religious implications. But you can kind of make the implication on your own. It's almost like a this unseen God in the sky somewhere. The spook God that we're all kind of bowing down to, and to the point that Big Brother has like these superhuman abilities and qualities that are ascribed, very similar to how we do now. Like there's certain things we don't want to say over the phone because they're listening. Who's there? I don't know. NSA? Who? Or certain things, when we do get around our home devices, we may say, man, I don't want to say this in front of the device. I don't want to whisper it. I mean, the device can pick up, can still hear you. You'd be surprised how sensitive those microphones are. But there's certain things that we don't want to say because there's like this mythic colossus of a character that we have in our head, which is very similar to religious dogma, that they are listening, they are watching, and they're going to do something to us. Right now, the truth is that whether that's real or not, our belief in believing that something is going to be done to us is what makes it real, which is no different than in 1984, where, Winston Smith was taught that whether a belief is true or not, it doesn't matter for it to be, established as a natural belief that you have to hold. Whether it's true or false, eventually it becomes indistinguishable. It doesn't matter. You know, if I hold up two fingers and I tell you it's three fingers, you better say it's three fingers, you know, or there'll be a certain penalty that will come to you, right? If I put someone in front of you and that person is clearly one thing, and I tell you to call that person another thing, even though you can clearly see it's this other thing, there'll be penalties, right? And a lot of that, the big brother concept is, it's not new, like I said, to just Orwell. H.G. Wells, Jules Verne was another one who covered these kind of concepts of kind of being controlled by these overlords. And when you speak about the overlords, I just want to throw something, man. And like I said, it's always open, man. Anyone could feel free to jump in. I just wanted to get things started. But you can't leave out, certain groups like the Dragon Courts. And the Dragon Courts are an important group for those of you who are interested in understanding about, like, people use the term Illuminati, right? Or Bavarian Illuminati, but very similar to Big Brother, you want to be able to, when you're speaking about certain groups or you're speaking about certain people, you want to be able to pinpoint. See, that's where the power is. See, Big Brother in 1984 had power because, like, parallel to a godlike mythical figure, there was no one we could look at and say this is Big Brother, and look at the frailties or the truths of what that particular was. But and this is similar when you say, oh, the Illuminati, who who are we talking about? And I mean, we could look at, because when we're speaking about Illuminati, ultimately we're speaking about bloodlines, right? So, like, when you're following a crime scene, they tell you, oh, well, follow the money. when you're following evil oligarchs and the parasitic elite, you want to follow the blood, right? So that's always your cue there. So when you're talking about like Knights Templar, we can find out who the Knights Templar were, or the Druids, or the Scythian Kings is another one, or when you start getting into the Sumerian myths, with the Anunnaki, then we start looking at the Davidic line of Yehuda, the Merovingians, the Grails, right? These are real bloodlines, right? The Dragon Court is another one, or the Dragon Courts, or what they also call the Dragon Clans. These are people who said that they existed before humans because and this is not something that this is not like out of a sci-fi book. Like, you can go and you can apply to be within the Dragon Court. It's a recognized bloodline, and they do DNA tracing to figure out if you are actually a part of that clan, right? So it's not they are officially recognized as royalty. It's not something that, it's not a pedigree that's kind of made up because you just woke up one day and say, "Oh, call me King so and so or Queen so and so," and I am, I had a vision that I'm the great part of the great brotherhood or the great sisterhood of the nine yellow dragons of the east or something. You know what I mean? It's nothing like that. You know um it's what we would call a Grail, but bloodline, and when Grail, Grail, you know, and that bloodline again traces back to Merovingians, right? And the Merovingians is a real bloodline. I know some of you may have only heard it in the movie The Matrix, but these are actually real people, right? And even like the Dragon Court, it was said like the Dragon Court started around like 2000 BC, and it really started in ancient Kemet, you know, believe it or not. And one of the one of the purposes of establishing and recognizing the bloodline was behind the study of alchemy. It was said that Tahuti, or who some also call Al Kim, Al and then Kim. So Al Kim, it's almost like two words, right? The black, you know, or Tahuti, or some people call him Hermes Trismegistus, depending on what culture you're coming from. But it was said that you know, it was a lineage that was established, around people who were related, but also studying alchemy. Now, of course, when you see the dragon courts or the dragon lineage, you're speaking about reptilian energy, you know, and within that lineage, you have like the Scythian kings, you know, and they come from Tuatha De Dan. Tuatha De Dan is an important group for you to learn about, right? They're called the children of Earth, or sometimes you hear them called the Fae, or you hear them called the fairies, or the fair folk, right? Inside of that lineage, also of the dragon clans, was again the Davidic house of Yehuda, right? So you have Yehuda in there, you have the Merovingians, and they all apparently, we got to say apparently on some things, are traced back to this particular bloodline, right? So I'm just giving you an example. I mean, I could go on about the dragon clans, even the use of, they use the term El all the time, or El Adonai, which was a term that they used a lot in that particular clan and still do, and their transliteration of El Adonai was the shining one, or the shining anointed one, and these is where we get to trace back. Remember when I taught you guys years ago? I'm sorry, not years ago. It's probably like a year or two ago, about the early anointing process that would happen in Kemet, represented by Sobek, and how they would use alligator oil in order to, or the fat, I should say, of the crocodile, not alligator, excuse me, it's crocodile. The fat of the crocodile, um, to anoint people, and it was also a tribute to Sobek. And of course, when they did that, they would also do it a lot of times before they went into war. And when they did that, then their skin would shine. So this is where you also got the idea of the shiny ones, or El Adonai, shining one. It was also a reference to being anointed. And that El is also where you get the term elf, right? So a lot of the terms that we have for like different things, like I said, whether it be elf, whether it be pixies, which was originally Pixidhe, Pixehe, and Pixidhe with a D, Sidhe, later became Pixie, right? These are people who, or entities, will say that would trace back to the dragon clans, right? Now, this is supposed to be, these people are supposed to be Big Brother, right? So when we say Big Brother and we say things like, again, they watching, and we don't apply an actual name or face or bloodline to trace, they become a lot more powerful. You see, just like in the book 1984, um, you had again a part of this bloodline, the Druids, right? And the Druids, they had these women who would wear all these feathers or these cloaks, and they would particularly wear them when it was wet outside. Sometimes they would wear seal skins as well. That's why you get the image of the Druids always in these hoods, right? Or you had within that bloodline the concept of the gnome. Now I know the gnome. A lot of times you see it and you say, "Oh yeah, garden gnomes. Those are cute, a little red hat and everything." But gnome actually comes from look at how it's spelled. It's not spelled Nom. It's spelled Gnome. Gnome or gnomes. So the Gno is means to know. That's where it relates to the concept of gnosis, or Gnosis. So if any of you familiar with the Gnostics or like the Gnostics church, it means the knowing. So the gnomes were actually the full word means that the like the you could say like the miners who gnome. I mean the miners who know, or those who mine knowledge. So a lot of times when gnomes were represented, they would have like pitchforks over their thing, and we see that now sometimes on people's gardens, and we think, oh, it's cute. You got the little, the little dwarf, and like the mine, and But what it actually represented was these were people of an ancient bloodline, and they would mine knowledge, or they would go underground. You know, sprites was another one. Sprites. The word sprites comes from spirits, right? So a lot of people would see these people as sprites or spirits, because when they would become anointed, a lot of times what the warriors would do is they would paint themselves with a pale paint, and people would say, "Oh, they're ghosts," or they're spirits, and that term later on went to sprite. Now you see what I'm doing here. I'm just lightly brushing the surface on a lot of things that maybe you might call. Fairy tales, even though a lot of these fairy tales they relate back to deep knowings, like even the Snow White and Sleeping Beauty tales. The concept of like a royal princess or the royal woman being poisoned and being abducted and then put under a spell. It represents the recovering of the female dragon knowledge. That's what that represents. And the power of a sacred bloodline. Sacred bloodline is also referred to as the Holy Grail. So when you see that term, the Holy Grail, they're speaking about a sacred bloodline, right? So this is Big Brother. Now, when you make Big Brother anything other than that in your mind, like, it could be this, it could be that, it's the Illuminati, And like I said, I specifically say the Bavarian Illuminati. The Bavarian Illuminati is something that you could get and trace and you can find. The Bavarian Illuminati, they went and tried to purge a lot of the dragon clans from different powerful positions that they were in. But you start getting into that, and you go into other theories and things like that. But Big Brother always watching is it's an important theorem, as we find when we read certain kind of books. Like I said, we explore the works of Jules Verne and all these different not peoples, but all these different people who taught on these different concepts. But um, what's equally important, once you get, see, that's the beauty of esoteric information. It's not for you to get stuck in it. I know people who've been studying esoterics for 20, 30 years. It's kind of a waste. Like it's the whole point and purpose is to show you that there's something beyond what's been put right in front of you, right? And essentially, that is what metaphysics is. It lets you know that there's some sort of overtone that may exist in the things that you're looking at. So again, when you look at a book like 1984, you'll realize, oh, there are parallels with religion. And for me to fully accept Big Brother's existence, you know, is necessary for me to be, as what they call them, their party members, right? And there's an ideology that comes along with being a party member, right? But I have to first accept the existence of Big Brother, even though these things may not make sense to me, and I may accept those things behind torture, and then eventually Big Brother will finally become real to me, in that sense. Um, so when you're reading George Orwell's work, or again different people, and you look at a Winston Smith and you realize, okay, or you see that Big Brother has become real to him, by way of just the progression of the story, um, you realize that in that society, an objective truth is unsustainable. That's really the reality of it, right? Um, so when I say, or when I'm again just sparking the conversation, Big Brother is watching, I just wanted to kind of get into a little bit, different ways that you all may see that maybe your truth is being manipulated, or the truth is being manipulated as a means to maintain power, or different ways that you may see that you've given up some of your freedom of privacy, and how that could possibly use. Keep in mind, even like companies like Google, w- you know, it goes so deep, right? Trying to keep it simple, but the owners of Google, they participate in the Bilderberg Group, and it's always the same cycle. You know, Someone shows up at the Bilderberg Group for the conference, and then within a year or two, they either become president or they're owners of like the next huge company, right? Or they go to war against someone else, supposed war, because they're always supported. But suppose it, if you will, if you really understand, again, bloodlines don't go to war against each other. So this is one clan that's watching others and pretending to go to war, most often. And it's a form of a purge, you know. So I just wanted to open it up again to anybody. I know we got some speakers on the line, and feel free to chime in, however.
Peace.
Peace, peace.
Go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead, sister.
Give thanks. Yes. So when I first saw this title, Big Brother is watching. I begin to think about the transition that I've gone with through my life with technology. The very first time I heard about an idea of Big Brother, I was very young, and we were being indoctrinated with Mavis Beacon and the basic things of all these things, and we were being taught that. Big Brother is our friend, that these systems are here to protect us. And so even in those, even as we grow up, that embeddedness of like protection, well, not anymore, has been within us to the point where like it's so trusting to the fact that you have like all these breaches, the confidentiality, all those things. And it really took me to join the military and become an intelligence analyst. And one of the first things they taught was operation security, or OPSEC. Like, don't do this, don't do this. This is how they tell you where you are. And it really has me thinking, like, even though like we may tease or taunt, our elders, or, those who are slow to move with technology about, like, why aren't you on the grid? Like, why aren't you, when all actuality, they're the wise ones, because, once you get your, like I said in the comments, your digital residue is still there, no matter how you try to scrub it or anything like that. Like, they, quote unquote, are in your home. Like, if you have Wi-Fi connected, if you have any, hey Siri, hey Google, anything, if you look at it, you'll notice, without you even saying, it'll come on. It's scanning your environment, it's listening on you. These technologies are listening without, your approval, but actually it could be your approval, because you're not reading the small print of when you accept these devices in your home. So, when Big Brother's watching, is like, yeah, Big Brother is watching, no matter how much you try to disconnect, because once you have plugged into that source, it's very difficult to get up off of it, unless you completely go, cold turkey off of it all, and so, and I think it's funny how, we try to peer pressure others to get on the grid, and to be tagged in and tapped into, this, I guess it's a matrix, but because, and even though we see the harms of it. We see the harshness of social media, the disconnection, in the women's call we had yesterday. Softer Gertrude was talking about how, the baby and the mother, breastfeeding doesn't have that connection, that eye contact, because of a phone, or that connection. So Big Brother is watching you and monitoring you and enticing you, and dangling the drug that you keep taking. Big Brother is big pimping, so yeah, give thanks.
Yeah, good, thanks. Definitely. Um, Especially the last point. I didn't think about the disconnect that must happen. You know, when you said the connection with breastfeeding, my mind immediately went to humming. You know, when mothers used to walk around the house, they didn't have something constantly distracting them, and they used to hum. You didn't have this. Like, even if they had a radio in the house somewhere, humming was something that people used to do. But it's like there's nothing slow to hum anymore. So they're not listening to the mother humming or singing or bonding in that way. It's like you could hear in the background someone taking over for the 99 or 2000. Like, it's not something that you would want to subject your newborn to. Like, I'm 2 days old, and it's the first thing I'm hearing. So that was something. Another thing that came to mind when Chief was speaking about was an experiment. I don't remember exactly the name, but it was like the people who thought they were helping to administer the experiment, they were actually the people who were participating. Like, they were the subjects, but they thought the subjects were in the other room. And the experiment was really for it was really to see how far people would go, you know, um, in terms of causing someone harm, knowingly causing someone harm, just because someone in authority told them to do so. It's like that I was only following orders syndrome, where the person in the other room, they would sit in front of the switchboard, and they were told that, the higher you turn this knob, the more pain they're going to experience. They're going to get an electric shock. And all the person in the authority position had to do was just say higher, turn it up higher. No matter how much they complain, just listen to me. And they found overwhelmingly that people went with the authority figure, no matter how uncomfortable they felt. As long as Big Brother told me to do it, then that's my story. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Big Brother told me to do it. And even now in this information age, like, information is like valuable, super valuable. It's a hard commodity now. So even every other site you go to, some of them ask you, do you want to enable cookies? Some of them just tell you, yeah, cookies have been enabled, and you either agree to this or you won't be able to see what you need to see on this site. So you just get annoyed and say the information, you know, and it might not even be worth it. You go on the side, it's like, this was what I was looking for, but you just sold your information, you sold your data, and it's being collected either way. So, yeah, that digital footprint, you're not gonna scrub it away. But what you put up on the internet, you're not gonna be able to take back. Yeah, but that's what I wanted to add in to the bill. And peace to everyone in the room. My apologies.
Peace. Greetings, everyone. I also wanted to add to the cipher. So yeah, that was something I thought of as well. It reminded me of like frustrating times that I've had when I was, much younger. Being introduced to certain technology or through the cell phones. I was one of the late bloomers to like Facebook and social media. I was doing my best to try and avoid going into going into quote unquote the matrix, right? And something that I realized, or I came to realize, that I wouldn't have access to certain conveniences or quote unquote privileges, right, that are offered. Um and that's like the cheese, on the rat trap, right? Where it's like, okay, like, with downloading a new app, and it's like, okay, I don't want them to have access to this information because it's private, and I don't want that to be shared. But it's like, okay, well, then you can't use this app. Then you won't be able to post this, or you won't be able to turn this on, or won't and it just reminded me of how many times, even before like this technology you know um got to this place of advancement, where everybody you know feels it's mandatory to have a cell phone, right? Before that, we were still giving up our sovereignty, our parts of our sovereignty and our freedom, for conveniences and privileges, just like even with the social security number, you know, and even on the social security card, it tells you not to share it, not to share it with anyone. But if you want to, have heat, and electricity in your household, then they're like, you know, we need this social security number. And we need your social security number in order to establish this. And when you don't have like the knowledge of like how sovereigns move, you know what I mean, you fall victim, and it's real unfortunate because you know we fall victim, out of that ignorance of not knowing, how to move, you know not knowing how to move as a sovereign. So we fall victim to the modern day traps, that society has. It's a trap in like every direction, you know, to where it's like, oh, well, if you want to live, then you have to play by these rules to receive these privileges, and to go about your daily activity. So that was something that came up, and I wanted to share and add to the cipher.
Greetings and salutations, Clubhouse Land.
Peace.
Maybe I've been asking Chief for a long time, and maybe he could answer us now. What do you do all day?
I eat quinoa and watch cartoons.
Oh my God. I swear to goodness, every time I get a chance to listen to you, it is like it's an honor. It is an honor for the information that you, and even like you said, lightly tapping the surface, but so much information to just man, give thanks. There was a lot, uh, even in the beginning when you said certain program responses that one may have that may think that, others may not see what they're saying, and picking up on certain responses in order to protect themselves. And it made me think of, if one can see others in certain responses, then it's like what happens when somebody starts talking around their cellular device or something like that, and somebody starts now listening into for certain words or certain triggers. That's okay. Now this is when somebody should tap in and listen to a certain conversation, and almost in the sense of making me think. Then it brought me to power, and some people might say knowledge is power, right? Um, and it was one of the scenes that was in Game of Thrones when they said, the he was trying to tell Cersei Lannister, it's like, a lot knowledge is power, and she was like, no, power is power, and was telling the group around him, take 3 steps back, take 3 steps forward, put a knife to his throat. See, what doesn't do anything. I'm telling you what I can do with it, and it's just interesting because now one has the ability to shape somebody's perception of what they see, of what is in front of them. There's an enemy that's in front of you. Oh yeah, there's an enemy that's in front of me. Oh, that's a friendly person, or this is a friendly area. It was even, I remember Chief had spoke about this with even the Popeyes, and you think it's an innocent cartoon that one is watching, but somebody's telling you who you should have an issue with. Somebody is telling you who the savior is. Somebody who's telling you, this is your now enemy, and never really sitting down to say, well, what did they do to me? What did they do to this person? Whatever the case may be. But it's like, nah, your enemy is my enemy now because we all in this together. United we stand, and saying all of these things. But when you start looking around, who really is helping you? So it just made me think of, and I'm a respectfully disagree with the victim piece, because at this point, there's too much for people to know to make certain decisions, that now all of us, now I would say that these decisions now are choices. Um, and one has a choice to either go left or they go right, or they choose to. It's very easy to let Big Brother just guide them, because it becomes a lot of work for one to now take control over their own destiny, and ultimately doing what is required of them, as opposed to just walking the road that's already paved. Which, if you put somebody out into a field, it's like, okay, you got to use your imagination now in order to build this up. Whereas opposed to putting somebody into a city, and the city has the paved roads, and go there, yeah, you know what, this is a lot easier. I just want to put my blinker on, make a right here, then make a left, and then I can get to my destination, as opposed to putting it together. So that was a few things that I was thinking of as Chief was building, and everybody.
Yeah, give thanks, man. Definitely appreciate that, man. Like everyone is kind of, it's interesting being from the military, on forward to, just speaking about like, yeah, I need to pay my power bill. It's very clear, and all the examples that everyone kind of is given, and the different perspectives, that this is something that everyone is affected by. Even me saying like, okay, yeah, well, I had my phone, but I didn't have phone service. But the reality is, the moment you get a Google account, they got you. That's it. you know and if you want to download these apps, you have to have some sort of working Gmail account, right? Or you have to have an Apple ID, right? So the moment it doesn't matter where you're connecting from, because your IP is still tracked through your actual account, not necessarily through your cell phone signal. And I mean, I know that better than anyone. I worked at Google at one point, you know and I was a beta tester for YouTube. I have one of the very first YouTube accounts. You think I'd have more subscribers, right? But I have one of the very first YouTube accounts. I was a beta tester for the software. So I know what the point and purpose, is for it. But yeah, being able to, like I said, to as you're being triangulated, it's almost like you see sometimes those movies where someone is watching with some binoculars or a monocular, and they're looking at a castle, and they realize the person is looking back at them. That's sort of like the spirit that we have to take on at this point. Knowing to know who's watching you and why. So when certain things begin to happen, like I said, you look at the Bilderberg group. I look at, okay, who went this year, who went this year, and then what happened around that time. These are some of the things that help you to make accurate stock predictions. But some people know about like the Rosicrucians. You look at the movie, the Secret, the documentary. That was a Rosicrucian film. They were all Rosicrucians in there, right? And some people know like the more popular ones, like the Skull and Bones, the Rosicrucians. But then there's some that are like right in front of you that you may not think about that have an effect on you, like the Ku Klux Klan. The KKK would be considered a secret order or an occult order. You know, the that's another one. The Seven Society, uh, the Order of the Golden Cross is another one, right? Theta Nu Epsilon is another one. The Flat Hat Club, that's one. That's an old one too. Flat Hat Club. The Order of the Turtle, right? The Ordo Templi Orientis is another one. The Knights of Pythias is one. There's so many societies, and all of these societies link or seek to link. There's another. Uh, the ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine. That's one. I did a lecture at one of their shrines once. Um, yeah, real man. I'll leave that one alone. But Freemasonry is another one, right? That was another one that's right in front of your face. The Foresters Society, the Improved Order of Red Men, the PEO Sisterhood. So it's important that you be able to kind of peep them while they're peeping you, you know, and get a sense of like you may look at a society like the Loyal Order of the Moose. That's one, right? You might be like, oh, they're probably a bunch of hunters, you know, and you may not realize, like, nah, no, that's not what that is. The Knights of Columbus is another one. The Sons of Liberty, the Thule Society, the Priority of Sion, Knights of the Golden Eagle, is another one. National Grange, the Order of Bull's Blood, right? The Mystic Order of the Veiled Prophets of the Enchanted Realm. I know that sounds like a RPG game, but it's not. You know, so yeah, man. Like the reason why and these are some like off the top of my head. There's many, many more. I don't know all of them, but um, and just because if I know them, that's not that's not them. That's the whole science to it. Like everyone's like, yeah, the Skull and Bones, the Jason Society. That's not their name anymore. If it were, then it wouldn't be secret. The whole point is for it to be secret. So if that's the name, and now you know the name, then we gotta now create a new secret. You know. So it's important to kind of be able to not only be able to track kind of what's happening, but like look at your participation. In order for this thing to work, just like the movie 1984, Winston Smith had to thoroughly buy in. At least their perception was that, he bought into what they were doing. But, you have to kind of look at, the symbols for Big Brother that we're currently under. Like in the movie or in the book, you have posters, you have photos of Big Brother, and that could have been a real person or not. I mean, we have artificial intelligence now that can generate faces that don't exist. You could do that yourself. There's free apps online that do that. You know, but the form of this kind of temporary doublethink, by people who were providing propaganda. Like one of their phrases, what was it? War is peace, education is ignorance. And these are things that were said constantly, all the time. War is peace, education is ignorance, right? So you take in enough of that, it's just easier, it's just less hassle. Say, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Oh, they're watching us through the phone. I know, man. What you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Now, I know someone. And this is not like a paid ad or whatever. I can provide the information. Anybody who's serious and not just wanting to collect information. But I know sites and a couple people who sell what they call ungooglified phones. You can get a phone with no Google on it, but that you can still get apps and things on, right? For some, this may not be a big deal because, like, another thing that they teach you is, well, if you ain't doing nothing wrong, what you got to worry about? You know, so, people tell you that all the time.
Right.
you know, what's the problem with me? Peeking into your windows and listening to every conversation that you have and everything. If you ain't doing nothing wrong, you know. It's not like this country or any country under the United League or the United Nations has ever done anything to someone because they didn't, they didn't deserve it. But and it's similar to like the Popeye thing, that I had shared some time ago, and that was just one of them. I mean, you could go to the Smurfs too. That's another good one. Scooby Doo is another good one. But like what I had shared back then was that yeah, Bluto, yeah, Popeye, Bluto, Olive Oil. Those were your three, and of course Wimpy. But those were your three main characters. Popeye, of course, was an American Navy man, and Bluto represented Russia or Russian, and olive oil was the oil. And America and Russia were always fighting over what? Olive oil, the oil. And sometimes you'd see certain images in the cartoons where one would have one hand and the other one would have the other, and they'd be pulling her, apart. And she was really skinny, so skinny that you could see her elbows sticking out from the side. So it was almost like it's a scarce commodity, that we have to fight over in this way, you know. But a lot of these things are right in front of you, and often even within the fiction of your movies, if you're really watching, you know, things are revealed to you. We all know about the Patriot Act. Like everybody knows about the Patriot Act, which allowed for citizens to be monitored in a very invasive way, reading of emails and things like that. And then the Department of Justice was reorganized, and the Department of Homeland Security was reorganized so that citizens or slaves, same word, citizens would lose more privacy and lose more freedoms, in the name of security, so we speak about things like the New World Order, which again, things if you pay it, it's right in front of you. It was H.G. Wells who coined that phrase, the New World Order. You know, but you think about that, and it starts with like Akoti Kashi was saying recommendations. You'll be on Facebook or some other site, and they're recommending certain outdoor activities that you can go and participate in, right? And so it's telling you like go here, go over there, go over there, go over there. You know, and it's something kind of important to think about. If you think about the West kind of surrendering its freedom to Big Brother, in these different types of ways, you know, once I can really predict your behavior, there's so much power in that. I don't really need to oppress you in a militaristic sense. I don't need to have armed guards in every housing complex and ready to shoot you down or whatever because I'm telling you where to go and where to be. That doesn't matter now. I've locked you in through scientific tyranny. Another good work on that is Animal Farm. You know, and Animal Farm again, it primarily again was about the Soviet Union. And what it was going through in the 1930s. Brother Lowe would be good in this moment. But again, anyone feel free to jump in on any point. You know.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on the point that it's always in your face. Like you can't get away from it. And as we were calling out some of those names, like some secret societies from cartoons I grew up watching came up, like Fred Flintstones and the Royal Order, the Water Buffalo. and you have different spin-offs of the Masons. I think there's a cartoon called Ben 10, but they weren't the Masons, they were the plumbers. Like it's there as like an archetype of society at this point, but it's there, so you might as well make it a character in fiction because what's the harm of it now? You know, um, and something also came to mind. I don't know what the I don't know if anything's going to trigger, but the website Pirate Bay, like they cannot shut down that site because it's never the same name. It's Pirate Bay dot something. They keep switching up the name, so you try to prosecute this one entity, but by the time all of the paperwork goes through, it's something else.
Yeah, but
And
here's one. Who's protecting the site,
yeah,
right? Because you
yeah,
can shut down torrent sites,
mm,
but with the torrent site, I can get AutoCAD. I can get a $10,000 software for free, right? So why would I not do that, right? But what's attached in those executables inside of that software? You know, so we again bloodlines. So we may think when we go to Pirate Bay, like, oh yeah, this is all about the revolution and making information and software and things open source and free. Maybe not. Maybe that's what you're supposed to think while you're installing all of this crack software. I got Photoshop now. I got Premiere now. I got this now. You got all this software now. And, now your computer's running slow for some weird reason. It always seems like something's running. You look at your router and the light is always blinking, even though your computer's off.
yeah,
You
all
know,
kind of background stuff snuck in like
yeah.
Trojan horse.
Why does it take so long for the computer to start up now and not realizing that, there was a software, well, it still is out. Many years ago, Cubase. Cubase is a software for audio. It's what we call a DAW, a digital audio workstation, and it's what we use to record tracks and stuff like that, right? And years ago, this was like one of the first crack softwares to come out for audio, almost period. Like it was Cubase, but because back then people used primarily a software we call Cakewalk or Pro Tools. And Pro Tools came with a whole hardware setup. It was very expensive. And people were finding out how to get this crack Cakewalk. The problem was it would crash all the time. It was super buggy, but people used it because it was like, well, it's free and it's better than paying five, six, or $700 for the software. And it came out a bit later that the cracked software was actually put out by Steinberg. Steinberg is the company that owns Cubase. So they cracked their own software and put it out on sites like what was the I can't remember the peer-to-peer download sites back then. It wasn't torrent sites, but they put it out themselves. And the reason they did that was they put a bunch of bugs in it so it would crash all the time to make people want to buy the real software. You see, so sometimes you thinking you're getting one thing and not realizing that there are people that are 30 steps ahead of you already. You know,
Right.
You
not that
You
you.
talking?
just dealing with you
Mhm.
get caught at level 2 or 3. You
Right,
thinking you getting
exactly.
through.
And they've already sat and thought about this. I mean, even when you brought up the Flintstones, yeah, man, like he was a part of. They had the midnight the midnight water buffaloes, and there was a scene where you see him with the apron on. He's got him and Barney have the Freemason aprons on. I did like a whole personal breakdown on the Flintstones before. Flintstones and the Jetsons were very interesting cartoon as far as what they were presenting, and obviously the Flintstones was based off of the Honeymooners, but the Jetsons, once I saw, like, even back then, like Elroy. Elroy is one of the ancient names for the Most High. Like it's one of the ancient sacred names. And that was the first thing that caught me. I was like, Elroy. And they live above the clouds. You never see the ground. Huh, okay. And then the compliment was the Flintstone. They even had a crossover episode at one point. And I was like, oh, okay. So the Flintstones are the humans and the Jetsons are the gods. Okay.
Yeah, I stayed up late watching that one.
Yeah, man. So yeah, there are definite connections there. But I heard some other voices and I cut it anyway.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you when you was trying to think of which software. I was like Napster.
It might have been Napster. Probably was Napster. I just feel like we were mainly only getting MP3s from Napster, and maybe we were using something else, but it could have been Napster. But there were also websites back then that you could get. There's a funny enough, there was a bunch of Russian websites that you
Mm,
could go to. One of them, and I know it's not even up anymore. That's so I can see his name, but mp3pro.ru. And I used to
mm,
go there and get all my software from mp3pro.ru. You know, um, hmm. So now, I mean, that puts certain things in kind of perspective too. Because it was only Russian websites that had cracked software for some
mm,
quote unquote odd reason.
mm.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too recent. I think Aries was another one. And LimeWire used to basically crash everything.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. I was out of
LimeWire
it
was
by
real
then.
bad.
Yeah, by then I was thoroughly entrenched in the IT field, so I would just crack software myself. By then, I was off the sites.
When you had just shared about, having that website to crash on purpose to get people annoyed with it, to go in a different direction, it made me think of there's a book called By Way of Deception, and it's like about making the Mossad. And one of the things that it shared in there was, the challenges of making people do what you want them to do, but making them feel like they're making their own decision. And in it, it was sharing some of the techniques of, like, there's a group of people in a certain land. We have to move them from one part of the land to the other. So what they did was they claimed that it was some type of natural disaster, and now they started to put things in the water. So people started to naturally say, I have to get out of here. But those steps was already like one, two, three in front of them. Okay, yeah, get up out of there because I need you over here because we're going to do something with this plot. Or there was another instance where there was a guy who they needed to get intel from out in wherever he worked at, and use somebody to meet him along his route that he's seen constantly. And then he finally started talking to the girl who made it, and she was making real friends. And of course, people are lonely. And the next thing you know, he's telling him, what time of day or where he's at and all of that, just giving it away. But not knowing these are steps that somebody is making one, two, three in front of you in order to get what they want. Um, and it's just very interesting that it goes back to one of the things that Chief you talked about a long time ago, which it was like it was a mistranslation. Know thyself, old man, right? And it always just keeps ringing in my head this conversation of just knowing yourself and knowing who you are. And you just speaking of bloodlines, right? And they're doing DNA tests, and this people are doing. I'm making sure this is who you're with. This is your group, so you know what you do and what you don't do. Because if you're not connected to that, then it's almost in a sense like in the Alice in Wonderland, where she's like, what road should I take? Where are you going? I don't know. Well, then any one of these roads is going to get you there, right? And it's like a perpetual thing of keep trying to take roads as opposed to knowing the group that you belong to, so you can't be taken advantage of because this is what we do and this is what we don't do, and being at the head instead of at the tail of the snake. But it's just yeah, one making a decision, I guess, and saying no, this is what we're going to do. So that's one thing that I was thinking about.
Peace, everyone.
Peace, Dominique.
Peace, Chief. So much you touched on, but Yeah, kind of relating to what Akizak said, it's like what we do and what we don't do can relate to the media. I know Chief brought up it dictates where we go, but also dictates our actions, like our mannerisms. Like there's a big structure or building in an amusement park here where I live, and just when Chief was mentioning the symbols, I noticed there are symbols of deers on it. There's symbols of buffalo on it, and no one goes in this building or no one approaches this building because it's a part of an amusement park. So everyone thinks it's just a part of, it's just a gimmick. But I have been keeping an eye on it. I used to keep an eye on it and then realize only people go into it at a certain time. So, but no one else, like regular lay folk, don't go. The individuals don't go into it or even regard it. So that had me thinking, as well as when Chief mentioned the Russian bots. It's interesting that those are the profiles that add you on social media, and you can tell they come out of nowhere. And I'm like, why are they always Russian? And it kind of relates to what's going on now in the world. I don't really want to mention too much on it, but what Chief was saying about bloodlines creating kind of the story to purge, I actually think that's what's happening right now. And another thing that I wanted to mention is all these sites that give you insights. For example, you sign up for a business profile, and it says it will give you insights. So if they're giving you all these insights, imagine the insights that they have on you, and that just dawned on me as everyone was speaking. Give thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Give thanks, Sister Shamini. That's an excellent point. Like things that we do or everybody does, or people are coerced into doing without really recognizing the who, why, when, and where. There's so many things that are like overhanging. I was talking to a woman recently who asked me if I believed in marriage. Well, she said she was a traditionalist. She said, "Oh, are you traditional? Do you believe in marriage?" And I said, "Not really. No. I don't even like the word, but nah, that's not something I do." And I understood what she was asking, but I also understood the fallacy within the question. And she was like, "Oh, well, I'm traditional." And I said, "Oh, which tradition are you referring to?" And that like gave her pause for so long because I said, I actually do, practice or perfect traditional relationships, but I don't know if we're speaking of the same tradition. So there's so many things that we do that we've kind of just been walked into, and we have this mind drift, if you will, that the overlords they seek to establish within us that causes us to do certain things. Like a great example, I was thinking, like when Shamini said there's certain things that we do without really thinking about. There's a lot of things that we look at now as mythological that didn't necessarily have mythological roots, right? Or things that we create these very large religious parallels with that originally their original idea it wasn't that, you know. Like I was thinking about vampires, right? And of course, we have a lot of movies and books and things about vampire. Like it's $1 billion industry, really. The concept of the vampire, but the vampires were a very real thing in European culture, right? And because of their pervasiveness in European culture, their images were all over. There used to be images of vampires on, and I'm talking about in European culture, on cookie, like or what they call shortbread tins. You get the Dutch butter cookies, I think they call them, and they come in those little tin cans. And of course, us in melanin dominant families, we never get rid of the can. We always use it to put sewing utensils or something, but it's like this is metal. You can throw this out, But there used to be images.
We
I mean,
don't.
I got a, I got a bunch of them in the garage.
Yeah.
Like I got all kind of stuff in those things. But you know, you, these there used to be images of vampires on those, right? And the vampires were families who would practice the I guess we could call it a science, sure, the science of drinking blood. And the reason that they would drink blood is because they would try to accelerate or elevate their social rank and their social position. So they would try to gather the blood of royals and of royal individuals, and they would drink that in order to um, become higher than where they were. You know, even within the etymological roots of the word vampire, there's the meaning of overlord inside of the etymology of the word itself. You know, so there was this concept too with the drinking of the blood, which they call pasir vampirism. Pasir, Poseur. And the concept there was that if you if you stimulated fear inside of the victim before getting the blood, then it would not be worth drinking. It was not something that you should now imbibe on if there was fear inside of the victim, because the blood must be given to you freely, right? So most of the movies that we watch with vampires, they stalk the victim. Victims walking down some dark alley, even though no streets have dark alleys anymore. But they always find a dark alley in New York or in London, and they hear a noise or a can kicks somewhere, and they turn around and don't see anything, and the whole it's they keep using the same kind of trope over and over again. And then, of course, the vampire gets in there afraid, but that's what the vampire wanted, for you to be afraid, and now I will drink your blood. But historically, that was the wrong thing to do. But people were really drinking blood. Families were really drinking blood in order to try to claim position within these monarch lines. And as a result, there was this epidemic of what they called false monarchies, and those false monarchies were not based upon transcendent wisdom, because the whole concept of the royal bloodline was that the wisdom of your ancestors was now handed to you. So that's why when you saw these child kings and queens in this royal line, they would, worship these, maybe 8-year old or 9-year old boys, as if they had all these great wisdom, because they considered that the wisdom of all the kings and queens before them was deposited inside of this child, right? So people were establishing these false monarchies, which is considered what we have today. So you have people in rulership positions today that they do whatever they want to do, but it's based upon tyranny and trade. It's not based upon wisdom and morality. There was an idea of the old kingdoms, or yeah, we'll say the old kingdoms being based on royal bloodlines that had a divine morality that was already ensued in them. And then this epidemic of vampirism came about, and people became false monarchs and began to ascend to the throne who had no business being on the throne, because they were not a part of the blood. Now, if you can hear what I'm saying, I'm speaking about an epidemic, from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but this is, if you can kind of understand, this is what we're experiencing now, right? So there was this concept of even the Holocaust of the elven race, which you see later in, like, dude's books, J.R. Tolkien's books, like the Hobbits and the. I'm
Lord of
sorry,
the
I don't know all
Rings.
the movies, because Lord of the Rings, right? I read the books, but I don't think I saw all the movies. I always like fall asleep before, so I get bits and pieces, and I know there's like bunch of those movies by now, and I've probably seen like half of one. But yeah, like in J.R.'s Tolkien's book, where they speaking about Middle Earth and stuff, and people trying to get the fortune of the elven family. That's supposed to be a correlation to events that happened like over 10,000 years ago. So you have this third age, and it's supposed to be like a pre-flood era, or a pre-flood time. But I mean, it goes into a whole thing, right? But a lot of what they're speaking about is the what we call the reptilian scales, of the different Elohim of Sumeria, and this is when you had mermaids who even wore certain things that would acknowledge what they were, and Mer or Moor has always been an ancient sacred term, the Mermaid or the mermaid or the Mar maid, that Mar, marine, water, dealing with that water concept, so we're talking flood, pre-flood, right? But yeah, like I know I went off the whole thing with that, but I find it kind of interesting just like how things tend to repeat themselves. That's really what I'm speaking about. And how sometimes based on our level of evolution or understanding at a particular era, how we will ascribe certain things that were not supposed to be there, right? Even when you look at like even biblical terms, and now anyone could jump in on this. There was this concept of Satan that people misunderstood very early on, and not understanding that the some of the early teachers of what we now call the Bible, when they were referring to Satan, they were referring to circuit prosecutors inside of the JU-ish um, theocracy, right? So take JU and put ish, and you understand the word I just said, right? Inside of their theocracy. So they were actually speaking about lawyers when they were saying Satan. And like, why would you worship the law? Like, why would you worship man's law? you know so that was ascribed to the concept of Satan being meaning the accuser of the brethren. At that time, we know, of course, Satan comes from Saturn, or satiate, or really from Set, meaning materialism, which later became again the lawyers, or what we call the esquires. Like when you see a lawyer say, I'm esquire this, the esquire was like a knight, and the esquire would carry a shield because they would protect the king's bounty. And these later became your lawyers. So when we were speaking about Satan early on, they were talking about people who were protecting the material wealth for the tyrannical rich oligarchs. So people, then took that and made that bigger than what it was supposed to be, not really understanding or grasping the gnosis, or the knowing that was inherent within the words that the message was trying to convey at that time. You know, anyone jump in? Yeah,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
just I couldn't help but how another water boy flashback. Oh, he's a devil.
Mom said, Mama said that alligators are ornery
Mama said,
because
Mama
he got
said.
all them teeth. They ain't got no toothbrush.
Yeah, but it makes me think of that game that we used to play as children, telephone. You start out with one message. By the time you get around the room, you got a different message now. Especially if you have people who just want to be mischievous and purposefully misinterpret the message, or just turn it into what they want it to be. And because you have so many different people from so many different cultures relaying the story, um, you you got to take history with a grain of salt in many cases. And now it even goes for today, because this editing process can happen like in real time now. Something like something that's happening right now, um, in Europe, we can't really like. By the time that story gets to you, it's a different story now. So you don't necessarily know what's going on, and it's difficult to tell what's going on in many other senses too, because it's so easy to manipulate information now. The software is so advanced that by the time it comes out, 20 seconds later, it gets to you and it's something completely different. And you think you have the full story, so you glance at it, you've got no attention span, you glance at it for like 20 seconds. It's like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. And then you just keep walking. Someone brings it up, and now you feel like you want to talk about it, but you got all of 20 seconds worth of information, if you paid attention for that long. It just makes me think of how fragile information can be if you're not if you don't take it in with a critical sort of mind, you know. I also wanted to ask, like, is that the reason for the sexy vampire trope nowadays? Like, now they convince you to give them their blood as opposed to just scaring the living daylights of you and feeding on your corpse. You know, that's what I made me think of when you're talking about the vampirism. You know, I'll leave it at that though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have to answer that. I think I think you can answer that, and I think that everybody in the room can answer that, right? See, that's the thing. Like, when we were learning, like how we're learning now, right? I mean, we're sharing. I'm not assuming that anything I'm saying y'all don't already know, right? Or anyone else is saying. But we're all here together. We're all getting it together, you know. And a lot of times we're doing all of this didactic learning on our own. We're solo. You know, I go grab my book and I go download my article, whatever, and I go off into you know, a moor somewhere or a crevice somewhere, and I go study on my own. And then, of course, I'm going to establish my own interpretation. And we honor that. Well, oh, yeah, man, I got understanding for myself. But really, for those of us who come from royal line, we understand that we learn in groups. You know, that's how we're supposed to sit, the elders there, teaching, sharing, pouring in, building, and we're giving the elder purpose, because now the elder has something to do, you know, and we're all learning this together and building on it together, as opposed to all of these little, you know, to quote George Bush, all these little points of light, you know, and now getting it, and now there's no real constellation being formed because there's no organization of what's being shared. You know, like you said, that telephone, and it made me laugh for a second because I went through something like that recently with a cut. I'm not gonna get a story, but we were literally at a table. We were at dinner, at like a family dinner, and I was on one end of the table with like some of the elders, and my little cousin. Well, he ain't. I mean, he's 30 years old, but you know what? He's still like my baby cousin. My baby cousin was at the end of the table. He just got a new apartment in this complex and all this. And they were telling me about it at the end of the table where I was sitting. And they were like, yeah, it's got this, it's got that, it's got that. So like later on, I went and walked down to the other end while we were waiting for the food. I was like, yeah, I heard you, you know, you just came up, whoop de boo, you got, you know, and he was like, you know, it's nothing like that. I don't have all of that stuff, you know. And this like, and it was funny because it was like just down the table. He was like, nah, because they were like, yo, he's got a pool with a bartender, and you could go out there and throw party. He was like, there's no bar. He was like, there's a little table there, and there's like one grill if you want to grill, but that's about it. I was like, oh wow, you know. So in action, you know, and a lot of that again comes from this very like vacuum, like isolated experiences that we receive information in, you know, and not moving with a tribal mind. You know, like one of the things I was thinking about was Anu. When people sometimes question me, I usually don't even answer it, but like, yo, why you Anu? What's up with that? You know, that's Anunnaki. You got one perspective. You stuck on one date. You know, it goes further back than that, and you got to understand language, because we can ascribe certain things. Like when you hear me use the term Lucifer, you know, yeah, you're going to have a certain mind based on your level of elevation, your level of awareness, not necessarily based upon truth. You know, but when I was talking about like even the dragon clans earlier, and you had the Sith kings, or what we call the Scythians, they were also called, which I said earlier, the Danan, right? And the Danan was actually a longer form of what they were. Their term was the Anu. Danan came from the Anu, right? So it was the Anu, the Anu, right? And these were people who were considered, or a clan that were considered to be um, progeny of the Anu or the Anunnaki, but they were not extraterrestrial, which was the difference. And so then within Scandinavia, you had the Anu or the Nan, and they later became the Danes, and the Danes were what we call the Vikings. If you remember some time ago, for those of you who listen, you know, some of the earlier stuff, I had spoke about the Black Vikings or the Moorish Vikings, and that this image of the Viking was not this big giant Swede with blue eyes and blonde hair. That was something that Adolf Hitler had invented to try to really push that superiority of what he considered to be the master race. But the original images of the Vikings was more like how you would see Jack Black in Pirates of the Caribbean. These were Moors, but these were the Danes, and the Danes had a lineage who they were related to, who were the Swedes, and they were the Swedes, and they were also who we call the Rutsi, and the Rutsi was the clan that founded Russia, right? So then you have in Denmark, you have these different caste systems, and one of which was called the Jarl, or the Carl, or the Thrall. Now, if you study anything about Vikings, you hear these names, right? And these names change over the time. That's what kind of makes it sort of interesting. In India, you had the same caste. You had the Brahmins, and you had the Sudras, you know, and you had the Kshatriyas, right? But the Scythian, or the Dane, or the Anu, they migrated to an area that was called Eire. Eire. And Eire later became Ireland, you see. And that's why you sometimes hear them referred to as potato eating Nagas, right? You know the word I'm using for Nagas, right? Potato eating Nagas, because they were always considered to be quote unquote a race apart from the rest of Europe, right? They were a race apart, but they were a ruling class. They were the Merovingians, you see. So the Merovingians came all the way from this bloodline, the Scythians, who were also called the Anu. You see, so it's like again a telephone game. So how do we get all the way to Merovingian? We get the Anu, or Scythian, all the way down to Merovingian. You see, and you gotta learn. And I'm not a history person. Like I've said before, I don't. History's kind of boring to me. I study it because I have to study it, but it's not some. I'm not like Low. Low gets excited off of history. I'm more into sci-fi, into Afrofuturism. But these are things that are important to know, to understand. You can't grasp metaphysics without knowing history. It doesn't work. Even when you look at the movie or read the book 1984, it was because Winston began to collect all these things from the past that he started to ask these metaphysical questions and these esoteric questions. It was because of the past. So even in looking at that, like, okay, you had the Anu, or the Danes, the Vikings. They were considered to be descendants of Anunnaki, but they were not extraterrestrial. Okay, so where were the extraterrestrials? You start to break it down, and then when you get more into that, and Scythian means people of great power, or people of the powers. A lot of them had red hair too, by the way. And then we start to leak or secrete into what was the Celtics, the Celtics lineage, and these were like short people. They were cannons, like they were short, and diesel, and real squat, and they had like dark hair. Then you have the Yehudites, and the Yehudites were called the Royal Dragons, or the Royal Dragon families, and these came out of the Israelite nations, which was considered an early Aryan nation, right? Because Aryan is where you get the word Arab. Aryan just means arid or dry. That's it. Doesn't mean Caucasoid. So again, when you trace down, I know I'm going on into the thing, but it could go so much deeper, because we didn't even get to Transylvania yet, and how Transylvania fits into the vampire piece and all that. But yeah, I don't want to hog before we get off.
So I'm a downshift. Good
That
night.
was downshifted, man. Cool. I left. You know what stuff I left out?
Yo, all right. So yeah, let's talk about the Smurfs,
Yeah, you talk
huh?
about the Smurfs, man. Karl Marx. That Smurfs was all about
Yeah.
communism. Israel, communism in Israel. Azrael the cat, Gargamel. He was a part of that Jewish line. His godfather Balthazar. Yeah, man, these are all ancient lines, man. Smurf was all about tantra and freaking tantra mixed with Marxism. Well, go ahead, man, break it down.
All right. Thank you, thank you. When you had said earlier of how one learns is having the elder and sitting around, and that elder has something to do. It's almost in the sense that that elder has been traded in for a search engine now, or Google, and if it's not in Google, or if I can't look it up online, it's not true. And there used to be something in one of the intros on enlightenment transformation was, sit down and have a conversation with one of the elders, and maybe they can tell you something that's not in a book. Maybe they can tell you something that's not, necessarily that you're going to be able to pull up online, that it has some other information. But now it's in the sense that if it's not there, then whatever you say, it can't be true. Because or even in, um, there's a piece in Major Pain where it's like, if the government wanted me to have one, they would have issued me one. So now, if I can't see it in this book, or even the great Amos Wilson used to say, it's hard for people to step outside of a book who's been in a certain education, because if it was important enough for me to know, then they would have taught it to me, quote unquote, they again. But since it's not, and now you're presenting something totally different than what I've learned, well, then now this what is this? And almost in a sense of, it's easy to now disprove, or it's easy to now shun somebody just with the simple word of conspiracy. So yeah, that's a conspiracy of what you're saying. Oh yeah, that could. And al- almost in the, like, along the lines too of how do you best hide something? You put it in somebody's face. So now you make movies out of certain things, right? Like you talking about, you make these whole animations around it and be like, oh yeah, that's just coming from somebody's imagination. No, that can't be actually connected to anything. Like that would be messed up if they were really doing that, but they can't do that, right? So now it's just like, yeah, that's all conspiracy. All right, yeah, I heard that before. Yeah, I got that. As opposed to taking heed to what's in front of you. And I keep saying this just because there's so much that's right here, just what you've been teaching with the motivation piece and the motion, and understanding that the difference between motion and motivation is you can mistake your motivation, but you're in motion for somebody else's motivation. And when that internal and that external piece of now being able to identify when somebody is trying to do something, and somebody is trying to make you move and put you on a dog track and put this in front of you to get you to start running, as opposed to, now let me see actually what is going on, and seeing what information now is trying to be downloaded into my psyche. Just like when Sister Sham said, about the news, and one of the things that Amos Wilson has said was, the news doesn't tell you what to think, but they certainly tell you what to think about. Now seeing just where your energy is invested, and where you're putting your thoughts to, and what you're giving life to, as opposed to now taking it back and eating what's on your plate. And there's so much that's here to eat from. There's so much here to recognize what's in front of you, so that you can empower yourself to make better decisions, to have better conversations, so that one is not having the same old thing of, yeah, this is what they doing now, they doing this, as opposed to, no, this is the move that we're making. And then now we analyze the moves that everybody else, oh, okay, good move, you tip your hat, but now this is what we're going to do next. So yeah, I just wanted to add that, man. Give thanks for all the
Yeah,
work.
man, for sure. But ain't none of that gonna happen that you talking about, man. You know what I mean? It's it's over, bro.
It's a
It's over.
fantasy.
They won. It's a wrap,
Give up
bro.
hope.
Yeah,
Dreams
man.
of a sucker.
Yeah, that's what they need to start putting that in the office, and like the principal's office. You know how they always got the cat hanging there. Nah,
Yeah.
give up.
Give up.
Have a picture of the cat just falling. It's over, bro.
If you're hanging on to a ledge, just let go.
Just let go, man. You know what I'm saying? Because you know what it is, man. Like, those who are gonna win are winning now, but it's how you define winning. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, the whole issue, like even with the bloodlines, is that you have ignorant peasants. And understand, when I say ignorant peasants, I'm not just speaking about people who don't have money or uneducated. You have ignorant peasants who are now in power, and that doesn't reflect the heavens. You see, so that's the whole science of all this bloodline stuff that we've been dealing with. So like when you say, like when someone like, yeah, put it in the book and hide it, and people are not reading, people don't want to take on the information and things like that, because typically people will take on the spirit of their leadership, and the leadership is, they're false monarchs. They're not supposed to be there. So when you're moving, like some certain babies come forth, man, and they're just really, really smart and really good. They're just good children, and they just know right from wrong from rip, right? These are children that come with that royal blood activated. That's called the invoking of ancestors. Invoking of ancestors isn't doing a dance and spitting out some rum and lighting some candles, and then you see that your curtains move and stuff like. That's not the invocation of the ancestors. The invocation of the ancestors is when their talents and latent faculties in nature come alive within your bloodstream. That's how you invoke ancestors. Some children come with that already invoked from the beginning, right? And these are children who are supposed to be ruling, but things are backwards because you had these ignorant um, savages, we use that term, who clawed their way to the top and flipped over the caste system, basically using false documentation. Like you could look at the documentation of Constantine. When you start to read about the Holocaust of all these different people who were hunted down and wiped out, and this one was taken from there, and this one invaded there, this one invaded there, that was the caste systems being overturned. You see, so now those who rule, those false monarchies, they're not ruling from wisdom, they're ruling from trade, they're ruling from usury. They have, and it's evident in what we're experiencing today. So what are we experiencing today? Literally, you go outside, especially you're in Cali. You go outside, the air doesn't even smell right. Some days they tell you don't even go outside.
True,
You know what I'm
true.
saying? Because of the air. Now, it's not that the planet is attacking you, it's because the people who are in power have mistreated what they were allowed to be stewards over. The water doesn't take, we have to buy water. We have to buy, this place is three-fourths water, and we have to actually buy it, to get water that's not going to give us stomach aches, or give us worms, right? So if you look at like what we've been experiencing, you see the results of the new overlords, and how the true overlords who were supposed to be in power are at the bottom. And the savages have wrestled their way to the top. And as a result, now we see it in the society that we're living in now. The system at one point reflected the fact that people had different gifts and different talents, and each group had its own primary purpose within a society, right? You hear me write about that in the Anu way, that each home is a factory. And this is the way it's supposed to be, right? But the Roman church, who was mainly farmers and peasants in the beginning, they rolled off of that documentation of Constantine and went out and massacred those who were holding down certain positions in society. That's why when you look at movies like Hunger Games, and there's another one I can't remember right now, the Reverend. That's the one with Leonardo DiCaprio. DiCaprio. I don't know, man. They all pretty much the same. Maze Runner, all of that. But you have these different societies, right? It's gonna be bugging me now. No, wait, I can't move on. I
You know,
can't let
like
go.
insurgent or something like that,
And
or
surgeon, thank you, brother.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, I was about to be stuck. You know, you get stuck. I was about to get stuck. So, um, you had to reboot me. But so yeah, it's like, I'm old school, so my reboot is like, yo, pull the cable out. It ain't
Turn it off,
even-
turn it back on.
yeah, turn the circuit, flip the circuit breaker. I'm old, you know what I mean? So yeah, man. So you have these movies that now are representing that idea of there being these different factions within society, which is how it was. That's why even when you read and learn about, when you take it to a more mystical perspective, it's not really mystical, but you learn about the Elohim, and you learn, okay, Elohim, these were groups of different archetypes that performed certain tasks. This ethereal deity deals with that, and that ethereal deity deals with that, and this and that, and we have different names for the Masoa. So that was supposed to be reflected down onto the earth. That's why you had these royal families. This royal family does this, and they even look different. Like I said, even when you look at the Scythians or the Gauls, and they had establishments within Judea and Israel, and they were horse people. They really taught and studied the science of the horse, where you get that Poseidon energy. Poseidon, another word for horse is Poseidon, right? The earth shaker. You would think, well, that's a water deity. What's he got to do with horses? But you start to understand that's kind of like that telephone game, I guess. Like you follow the line, like, what does this one mean? What does that one mean? Who's over this and who's over that? Um, but yeah, man, that's why some things won't come back. Because just things have been topsy turvy, and what the royals have to do now is they have to do it from the ground. See, that's the Jetsons and the Flintstones, right? You look at the Jetsons, every episode was about what? George and something with Mr. Spacely, something with some money. In the opening credits, you see him handing out money to his wife, and she grabs the whole wallet. It's all money, right? And the Flintstones is Pebbles and Bam Bam, and we're family, and Dino is even part of the family, right? So this, I'm saying science and everything. If you just know, you know what to look for, and everything in the Flintstones is purposed. Even the dinosaurs, like, all right, you're gonna be my shower, you're gonna be my record player, you're gonna be. Everything is purposed. So that groundswell of, I guess we could call, like J.R. Tolkien spoke about these different ages, because that's what he was really talking about. There was a science to those ages, you know, um, is really the royals coming back up through the lower caste systems. And is it going to be a lot of people doing it? No, because people take on the spirit of leadership. So if your leader is a savage, you're going to be a savage most likely. If your pastor's a savage, the members are savages. But then there's always that one or two that's, I'm not, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go over here and do my thing over here. And that's the royal ancestral invocation kind of poking its way back through, outside of those who would just follow kind of religious happenings and don't really get the point and blindly worship certain ideas and certain concepts without really understanding that, no, this is being delivered from someone who's a false overlord. And there's nothing wrong with it being overlords. They were supposed to be here, but it just seems so horrible and bad now because of who's doing it. But again, follow the blood. Like I said, you want to learn the story, follow the blood. And when you follow the blood, you'll realize, well, oh, this is how they got into power. So they didn't come into power because of some talent that they exhibited, or some, when we talk about the alpha is the one who brings the greatest um, contribution to the community based on what the community needs. So this was not a family that came into power because they were an alpha family. The community needed water and they were able to dam water, or needed food and they were great hunters, anything like that. These were people who killed magi and then replaced them. You know, you talk about, the Druids. These are people who killed the real Druids, or these are people who hunted down the royal dragon family of the Israelites, and then took their story on and took their identity on. You see, these were not necessarily the first Sumerians who sat in the high chair. who were the overlords from Central Eurasia. These are some other people. These are the people who hunted them. You see, I don't
Yeah.
Peace. I want to go back a few paces to when Akizak was talking about the elders. Also, I want to plug our New Life Global Ministries blog is now out, Volume 10, Where Have All the Elders Gone? You can find that on newlifeglobal.org. But I was thinking
Aren't you
about
on a
how,
media team?
yes,
So
I
you
am.
basically you just plugged you put a plug in for yourself.
That's what I knew.
But
Yeah,
What?
low
but
key,
but, but
low key.
Son, that's for the
yeah,
family.
all right.
Okay.
We appreciate
Anyway,
you.
follow us on Instagram and Facebook on New Life Global Ministries. Okay. So no, it had me thinking about how the emergence of Big Brother, we have edged out the elders, where you don't want to sit by their feet, where you don't want to listen to their experiences, and where you often miss a lot of things that you're supposed to learn because, as it was said, you're specifically given or allowed to access certain information, that tells you, this is what this is and this is what it's not, and it isn't necessarily, you know the truth or factual. So I do think that the more that we cling to our devices and the more that we shy away from our identified elders, because there is a difference between elders and just being old, we lose that value, we lose those lessons, we end up making a lot of mistakes that we don't even have to, because we're always asking. We don't ask Jeeves anymore, Jeeves is gone, but we ask in Google, and we could be asking our elders, and learn from that experience instead. So yes, give thanks. Honolifeministries.gov.org. Okay.
Yeah.
.gov. That sounds like
Org.
some agent stuff. Oh, she just told on herself.
Honolifeglobal.org.
Yeah, yeah.
Intruder
Go to
alert.
DEF CON. Yeah, DEF CON 5.
Oh my goodness.
Red alert.
I'll put it in the chat. Okay.
I just wanted to add something that Chief brought up when you were speaking about the bloodline, like trace the bloodlines, and the false overlords and the savagery of them. You can see the savagery through the ailments that came from them trying to continue on a false lordship, like by in them inbreeding. I believe hemophilia is spread all across Europe. I think there's something else called Hasberg jaw or something. Like all these ailments came up, and they're not hiding it either. Like it's clear that they inbreed to keep their lordship, the false lordship over everyone. That's it.
That's
It makes me
also.
think of. Oh, go ahead, bro.
Go ahead. What did it make you think of, brother?
It made me think of and I think it was in Acts when um, there's this guy running around saying, "I baptize you in the name of or I cast you out." He's trying to cast out a demon in the name of the Jesus who Paul preached. He's just like he was like what do they call it? Um, a bandwagon. Like he was just like, well, they could do it, I could do it. He didn't really respect the process or the line of authority. He was just like, I'm doing this, you know. And the spirit was looking at him like, I don't know you, bro. I don't recognize a drop of authority coming off of you. You might trick these other people into thinking you got it, but it ain't in you, bro. You ain't got it. And a lot of people can go around trying to and even successfully fooling um, people on this side of it, people on this plane, but there's not really any authority coming from them. And like Sister Chamonix was just saying, like it shows in the action. The bestial nature comes out, almost like Beast of No Nations. This uprising will bring out the beast in us. Like you'll see it come out when they get frustrated, their poker face falls, and they start doing some really heinous stuff. But yeah,
I was just going to add, and I'm sure Albert Randy could speak to this because he's the one that put me on. It was a show. I forgot the name of it, but these people fell from the sky, and I ain't really finished the
The
joint. But
100. It's got to be the
there you,
100.
yep,
Yeah,
yep,
either you down with one crew, you know what I mean?
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, I know that show.
But there was a piece in there though where they started making the blood, and that's what just made me think of it. Like they weren't a part of this bloodline, but they were trying to extract the blood from the actual people who had it in order to now have them give themselves immunity, or from the elements that are around them, and try to create a whole new bloodline. And it just made me think of when you're speaking of somebody co-opting or somebody getting certain information, and now having, like you said, the Jetsons and the Flintstones, now having that flipped, and now one has to navigate from the ground as opposed to navigating from where they were. But in a sense of, can one now recognize though that is where they have fallen from, right? And being a part of that one crew, or there's so many different avenues and so many different things that are offered now that people even get so overwhelmed where it's like, I'm not a part of that. Matter of fact, you know what? I'm non-binary. Yeah, that's what I am. I'm non-binary. I'm not, or whatever the case may be. And I just find that interesting when you were speaking of that, just thinking, of how people can even burn down whole libraries and everything to make sure that one doesn't know who and what they are, and then take the story and make it their own. So, yeah.
Yeah, I got a head up coming, so give thanks for the bill. Definitely give thanks
Absolutely.
for.
Yeah, we're gonna close it down anyway. So give
All
thanks
right.
for coming through. We're right at the 1 minute, you know, going into the 2 hour mark. So yeah, give thanks. I know again, like I said, you all were expecting the bubbly cackle of Koti Deidre for this session, but she'll be on the next one. Yeah, so I stepped in the cover for her last minute. So, it is what it is. But willfully, you got something that you can use. I mean, that's always really the point. Getting something that invokes thought, wakes up some maybe sleeping part of you, maybe even dead, and there could be, something that may resurrect a better way of thinking within you so you can get closer to where you're supposed to be, and like Brother Zach just said, like recognizing, hey man, I'm Lucifer, or and make it easy for you. I'm the fallen one. I came from out. I'm a fallen angel, right? If you want, that feels better for you, that kind of language. But you know, once you realize who and what you are, then you get a better sense of what it is that you're supposed to be doing. But you first have to come to the knowing of being before you could come to a wisdom of doing. And then that will bring you to the understanding of now what you create and what you produce. All right. So yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming through. The yeah, I think this experience has been pretty good, and for everyone definitely who spoke up and shared and gave some good food for us to kind of chew on and think about. So before we head out, I know that Anu people always want to make sure that we share any contact information or whatever, because I never do. Um, just kind of embarrassing considering who I am within the movement. But any of you others want to share anything aside from a shout out to yourself like Kashia did earlier?
It was for the community, man. It was
Yeah,
for the community. On
you say nothing about the community.
newlifeglobal.org for the newsletter. What? But yes, check out the
Notice
newsletter
she
on
went
the
straight to the
blog.
Then to
newsletter
the
every
government. She
time.
went from the newsletter then to the government.
Yeah.
Talk
Okay.
about a
Yes.
redirection.
Follow Anu Womb on Anu Womb on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of those things.
Yeah. Shout out to
Give
the
thanks.
CIA too.
Yeah.
Okay.
criminals in action. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all day.
Where my man J. Edgar Hoover. You know what I mean? Keep your head up.
Creator in Ahava in love. How about that?
Word is
Yeah,
Bob.
whatever. Yeah, all right. Go ahead,
Peace,
Shamanique.
everyone.
Shamanique wanted to share
Yeah,
something.
just link to what we're speaking of today. I know Akilo couldn't be here, but check out Enlightenment and Transformation every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Akilo breaks down movies, the movie understandings, and he really connects them with history. And the last one we did was Mother. It was really insightful. So check it out, Enlightenment and Transformation on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. The mother one was good. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that one. You know. And for those of you who do tune in when you check out Low, don't be afraid to ask questions. I just want to share this before we go too. Like everyone you hear speaking is a student, myself included. So I often put people in certain positions not because they're so great at a particular thing, but because it's something that I want them to develop. And I like um, challenges, right? I like my students to be challenged. So as long as the question is relevant. I mean, if he's talking about a movie, don't try to get him to break down how do you make rocket fuel with ingredients from under your kitchen counter. Like come on. But you know, people be asking stuff like
He
that.
would know. He would know.
Probably
He pro-
connected to the movie too.
he mess around.
You
Yeah,
probably know the first person who ever did that.
exactly. But so don't be afraid to to challenge respectfully, and to really kind of ask those questions. The same goes for the readings on Friday nights that we also do as well. Don't be afraid to get in there and ask, certain things, even if you think it may be a tough question. If they can't answer it there on the spot, they're gonna have to answer it anyway. They're gonna have to come back. Say, I have to come back to you. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. You know. All right. So thank you all. Definitely enjoy the rest of your day. All right, and be safe. And we'll see you again very soon. All right. Peace, everyone.
Give thanks,
Peace,
G.
everyone. Have a good stroll.
Shalom,
Peace.
shalom.
Peace.